I came home smelling like diesel and sweat, fingers still stained from 12 hours under two different rigs, both of them emergencies. The kind of day that doesn't leave room to breathe, let alone text back. It was a random Tuesday, close to 10 at night, and all I wanted was a shower, food, and a few hours of silence. But when I stepped inside, the lights were off. Just the low flicker of the fireplace lighting the living room. Rachel was sitting in the armchair, barefoot, half a bottle of wine gone, the other half in her hand. She didn't even look at me when she said, "You missed it." I dropped my keys on the table. Missed what? My show. The youth theater production. The one I've been working on for the last 4 months. Her voice cracked halfway through. Tonight was opening night. That stopped me. I honestly didn't know what day it was. I stood there, still in my coveralls, my back aching and hands shaking a little from too much caffeine and not enough food. Ratch, I got called in. 2 semis down, back to back. I didn't even eat lunch. I don't care, Eric. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were glossy, but not from the wine. You didn't even text. Nothing. I didn't have time. You think I wanted to miss it? I think you didn't think about me at all. She stood up, a little wobbly. I'm always the one bending. Always the one understanding. But tonight, I needed you. I needed one night, and you weren't there. I dropped my jacket on the floor. I've been busting my ass to keep things going. You want to talk about pressure? About stress? I'm not your enemy, she snapped. But you sure as hell don't treat me like a partner anymore. That hit hard. I rubbed my face and tried to stay calm. I'm trying. I'm doing what I can. You think I like being exhausted every day? I think you use work as an excuse to avoid everything real. Her voice was low now. Controlled. Including me. I didn't know what to say. I stood there while she took a deep breath and said it. I want a divorce. Just like that. No shouting. No threats. Just the words that cracked the floor beneath me. I looked at her, trying to find something in her face that meant she didn't mean it. But she was already turning away. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I walked upstairs, grabbed a bag, threw in some clothes, and left. Quick note. Before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I didn't go far. Just over by the shop, a tiny one-bedroom off the side street behind the gas station. It smelled like paint thinner and the heater barely worked. But it was cheap, month to month, and close enough that I could walk to the garage in 5 minutes flat. I didn't bring much, just a duffel, some tools, and a couple shirts I forgot to wash. No pictures. No furniture except what came with the place. I kept the TV unplugged. The silence made it easier to forget what was missing. I started picking up every shift I could. Weekends, nights, holidays, didn't matter. If someone called out, I was the first one there. If a truck came limping in at 9 p.m., I'd stay until 1 to get it running again. My boss liked it. Called me reliable. I wasn't doing it for him. I just didn't want to be alone with my own damn head. Rachel's lawyer emailed the papers 3 weeks later. No drama, no meetings. Just a thick envelope in my inbox and a hard copy at the front desk. I signed every page without reading them. She kept the house, her Subaru, our old dog Luna, everything. All I had was the apartment and my tools. That seemed fair, honestly. I blocked her number. Unfollowed our mutual friends on Facebook. If someone texted asking if I was okay, I didn't answer. I didn't want pity. I didn't want the story getting passed around like gossip. I just wanted to work, sleep, and not feel anything. There was no big breakdown. No scene. Just long stretches of nothing. I'd finish patching a radiator, then sit in the shop's break room staring at the vending machine like it owed me an answer. Some nights, I'd go home and lie on the couch without bothering to eat. Other times, I didn't even take my boots off before passing out. It was the kind of loneliness that doesn't yell. It just waits. Sits there with you. One night, I was digging through an old cardboard box looking for a phone charger when I found a folded photo wedged between 2 receipts. It was from a trip to Colorado, one of those stops we made at the edge of a mountain trail. Rachel had her head on my shoulder, both of us squinting in the sun, smiling like idiots. We were wearing matching hoodies we bought last minute because we hadn't packed for the cold. I stared at it for a long time. Couldn't even remember who took the damn picture. I didn't cry. Wasn't some dramatic movie moment. I just sat there holding it, jaw clenched, stomach tight, not sure what the hell I was feeling. Regret, maybe. Or just the punch of something that used to matter. That photo went back in the drawer. I didn't tear it up or throw it away. Just shut it inside and turned out the light. Next morning, I was under a bus by 6 a.m., tightening bolts and pretending none of it ever happened. It was just after 8 on a Thursday night. I'd just finished scrubbing the grease off my arms and was standing shirtless in front of the open fridge, debating between stale pizza and a beer, when my phone lit up. Rachel. I froze. I hadn't heard her voice in months. Thought maybe she butt-dialed me. Then the second ring hit, and I picked up. She didn't waste time. It's my dad. He collapsed during his retirement dinner. They're taking him to Riverside. Her voice was cracking, rushed like she was barely holding it together. What happened? I don't know. I wasn't there. One of his co-workers said he just dropped. EMTs think cardiac, maybe something else. Eric, please. Can you go? I can't get there fast enough. She wasn't asking. She was begging. I'm on my way. I didn't grab anything except my keys and a hoodie. I hit every yellow light on the way to Riverside, 1 foot ready to slam the gas harder if I had to. I hadn't seen Doug since the divorce, but that man taught me everything I knew about marine engines and patience with rusty bolts. He gave me my first job back when I was still a smart-mouthed 20-year-old. Treated me like I was his own long before Rachel and I ever became something real. At the ER entrance, I lied to the nurse at the check-in desk. Said I was Doug's son-in-law. It wasn't a stretch. She hesitated, but finally waved me through toward the trauma wing. He was already on the table when I walked in. Monitors were blaring. A couple nurses were trying to stabilize his vitals. One of the doctors barked something about dropping oxygen levels. I watched the numbers plummet, my gut clenching. I'd seen this before. Not in a hospital, but in trucks. Engines losing pressure, parts overheating, fluids backing up. Same patterns, same panic. I spotted Caleb, an old buddy of mine who worked as a paramedic. He was talking to a young nurse outside the bay doors. Caleb. I waved him down. What did they say? What do we know? Some kind of cardiac tamponade. They think fluids building around the heart. His blood pressure's tanking. He's not getting enough perfusion, I said. He's had high BP for years, and he had that valve thing, remember? Caleb nodded. Yeah, mitral valve replacement. You should tell them. I turned and caught the attending as she passed. Hey, Doug Stratton, 72, mitral valve replacement in 21, hypertensive for years, borderline diabetic. He also had that weird allergic reaction to morphine. Don't give him that. She stared at me like I'd just handed her the missing puzzle piece. Are you family? Close enough, I said. She nodded and ordered someone to prep for surgery. Doug looked pale and soaked in sweat. His chest was heaving, like he was trying to breathe through concrete. The team started rolling him out. Right then, Rachel came running down the hall, hair a mess, still in her blazer, face blotchy from crying. Where is he? She gasped. I stepped toward her. They're taking him to surgery now. It's bad, but they're moving fast. He's got a chance. Her eyes locked on mine, panicked and searching. You told them everything? Yeah, I stayed on them. They've got what they need. She grabbed my arm and didn't let go. You'll stay, right? I'll stay, I said. I'm not going anywhere. We sat outside the OR, side by side on a stiff vinyl bench that smelled like bleach and worn-out hope. The hallway lights buzzed overhead. I had grease stains under my nails. Rachel was still shaking a little, her blazer draped over her lap like it might keep her grounded. Neither of us said much at first. Just sat there, listening to the clock on the wall tick slow and loud like it was mocking us. Every time a nurse passed, Rachel jerked her head up, then looked away. After an hour or so, she whispered, Are you here for him? Or for me? Her voice wasn't accusing, just tired, like she didn't have the energy to guess anymore. I leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling tiles. I don't know. Maybe both. That was the truth. I hadn't figured it out yet. My chest felt like it was being wrung out one twist at a time. She nodded slowly, pulling her sleeves down over her hands like she used to when we'd argue, and she wanted to hide her nerves. Another hour passed. Then another. At some point, Rachel dozed off with her head resting against the wall. I stayed awake. Every time my eyes started to close, I saw Doug on that stretcher, gasping like an old boat engine trying to fire one more time. Finally, the OR doors pushed open and the surgeon stepped out, still in scrubs, hairnet tilted sideways like he'd been running a marathon. Family of Doug Stratton? We both stood at the same time. Rachel's hand brushed mine, but didn't grab. The doctor looked from her to me. He pulled through. It was close. We drained the pericardial sac, about 200 cc's of fluid. His heart's beating on its own now, but he's going to ICU. You can see him once he's stable. Rachel's face crumpled. She let out this half sob, half laugh, then threw her arms around me. I didn't move at first. Then my arms went around her, tight. For a second, it was just two people who almost lost someone they loved, holding on like the ground might give out again. She stepped back, wiping her face with her sleeve. "Come on," I said. "Let's go wait near ICU. He'll be there soon." We walked in silence through the maze of hallways. Up one floor, around two corners. The ICU wing was quieter, colder. All glass and blinking lights behind doors. A nurse pointed us to his room once they got him settled. When we stepped in, Rachel stopped in the doorway. Her whole body stiffened. Doug lay there, eyes closed, tubes down his throat, chest rising and falling slow and heavy with the ventilator's rhythm. Beeping machines lined both sides of the bed, and Fortree stood beside him like a weird hospital Christmas tree, hung with clear bags and tangled lines. She didn't move. I walked in first. "That's the heart monitor," I said, pointing to the green waves dancing across the screen. "That number on the left, blood pressure. The top one's systolic, bottom's diastolic." That wire taped to his fingers checking his oxygen. Rachel stepped in slowly. Her breath hitched as she looked at her dad. "God, he looks so small." "He'll bounce back," I said. "He's tough, stubborn as hell." She gave a weak smile, tears still sliding down her cheek. I stood next to her, not touching, not pushing anything. Just there. "He hates hospitals," she whispered. "Yeah," I nodded. "Told me once they smell like wet paper towels and shame." That made her laugh, just once, just barely. She took another step closer to the bed, reached out, and wrapped her fingers around Doug's hand. Her grip was tight. I didn't say anything, just stood beside her, watching the numbers on the monitor hold steady. The next morning, I showed up to the ICU just before 6. Doug was asleep, the monitors steady. I stayed 15 minutes, didn't say much. Just made sure he was still hanging in there, then left before Rachel could show. I kept that pattern for the next 3 days. First visit early, second visit late. I figured she needed space. And honestly, so did I. Thursday night, I came by a little later than usual. Doug had just been moved out of ICU and into a recovery room. I brought a sandwich and planned to sit with him while he snored through another episode of Wheel of Fortune. But when I opened the door, she was already there. Rachel sat in the chair by the window, feet tucked up under her like she used to at home. She looked over and gave a half smile. "Didn't think you'd be here this late," I said. "I could say the same to you." I stepped in, not sure if I should stay. "I can come back if—" "No, it's fine." She stood and pulled another chair over. "You want to sit for a bit?" I sat. We both watched Doug breathe for a while. The room buzzed with that low hospital hum, soft beeps, air vents, hallway chatter leaking through the door. "Thanks for being around," she said quietly. "I know you didn't have to be." "Yeah, well, he matters. Still does." Rachel nodded. She picked at the sleeve of her sweater. "I've been thinking a lot about how things ended." I didn't say anything. She kept going. "I blamed you for everything. For working too much. For not showing up the way I wanted. But I didn't exactly ask how you were doing either. I just got fed up and walked." I shifted in the chair. "We were both fried. You wanted things I didn't know how to give. I figured if I just kept grinding at work, it'd all balance out. But it didn't," she said. "And I didn't try to understand how hard you were pushing yourself. I just saw what wasn't there." I ran a hand over my face. "This feels like a lot for one hospital visit." "I'm not trying to start anything," she said quickly. I needed to say it out loud. "To you." There was a long pause. Not awkward, just full. "It doesn't feel like you're ambushing me," I said finally. "Feels like, I don't know, like you're closing a door without slamming it." She looked at me for a second, eyes softer than I remembered. "Maybe I'm trying to open a window instead." I snorted. "That's a little cheesy, even for you." She laughed. "Probably." Doug stirred in the bed and let out a grunt before settling again. I stood up to leave. "I should go. Early shift tomorrow." Rachel pulled a slip of paper from her bag and held it out. "Here's my new number. In case you ever want to talk. No pressure." I took it without thinking. "All right." She nodded. "Drive safe." I stepped out into the hallway, her number folded in my hand like it weighed a pound. I was back at the apartment, half asleep on the couch with the TV muttering in the background, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Eric? This is Nurse Powell from Riverside. Doug Stratton's showing signs of cardiac tamponade again. Fluids building fast." We need consent for a pericardial drain and couldn't reach Rachel. I sat up straight. How bad? His vitals are dropping. We're prepping now. I'll call her. I'll be there in 10. I didn't bother changing. Just grabbed my wallet and keys and peeled out of the lot like the devil was chasing me. Rachel picked up on the second ring, her voice groggy. Hello. It's Doug. They're prepping a drain at Riverside, tamponade again. Nurse couldn't reach you. I told them I'd call. She was quiet for half a beat. Then, I'm coming. Tell them I'm on my way. I hung up and floored it, running 2 red lights and almost clipping a garbage can on a turn. My brain was already shifting gears. I'd seen this before. If they didn't drain the fluid in time, the pressure would crush his heart like a vice. When I got there, the ER doors flew open like they knew I was coming. The nurses were moving fast, IVs running, machines buzzing. Doug was pale, moaning, barely conscious. One of the attendings, a woman I'd seen during the last scare, spotted me. You family. Close enough. She eyed me, then nodded toward the curtained area. We're setting up for a pericardiocentesis. Want to observe? He seems to calm when you're near. Yeah, I said. I'll stay out of the way. Inside, the mood was all business. The lead doctor was scrubbing up while someone else read off vitals. Oxygen saturation was dipping, BP dropping. Doug's chest rose in short, shallow bursts. Heart's getting squeezed, the doc said. We've got maybe 10 minutes before he crashes. They worked fast, cleaning the area just under his rib cage. I stood behind the curtain rail, hands clenched, eyes locked on the tray of tools. Rachel rushed in a few minutes later, breathing hard, eyes wild. Where is he? I stepped out and caught her by the elbow. They're inside now, prepping the drain. He's hanging on. Her face twisted, but she didn't cry. Not yet. Can I see him? She asked. Just stay here. They're in the middle of it. I'll let you know the second you can go in. She nodded and clung to my arm like she had in the hallway that night outside surgery. The curtain parted slightly, and I heard the doctor say, needle in. Starting draw. Seconds later, the monitor gave a soft beep, pressure stabilizing. Drain's working, someone said. I looked at Rachel. He's okay. Her knees buckled just a little, and I caught her before she hit the floor. She leaned into me, quiet sobs finally breaking loose. No drama. No wailing. Just the sound of someone coming apart as gently as possible. We stood like that for a while. When they wheeled Doug out of the procedure bay toward recovery, Rachel wiped her face and followed beside the stretcher. I stayed close, but let her lead. In the hallway outside the new room, she turned to me and whispered, "Thank you." Again. I told you, I said. I'm not going anywhere. After they got Doug settled, Rachel and I ended up in the cafeteria. It was nearly midnight. The lights buzzed overhead, and the coffee tasted like burnt plastic. She handed me a vending machine sandwich, still cold in the middle. I didn't complain. Neither of us had eaten since morning. We sat across from each other at one of those white plastic tables that always feels sticky no matter how clean they look. Her hair was pulled back now, loose strands hanging in her face. She looked exhausted, but not broken, just worn down in a way that felt familiar. She took a sip of her coffee, then looked up at me. I've been thinking about us again. I didn't respond right away, just took a bite of the sandwich. Turkey and something that used to be cheese. I mean it, she said. Not in a let's run back to what we were kind of way. More like, maybe we gave up too fast. We never really sat down and tried to understand each other. Not properly. I leaned back in my chair. We tried. A lot. We just kept missing the mark. I know, she said. But looking back, it wasn't just you disappearing into work or me being demanding. It was both of us not saying what we really needed. I looked down at my coffee, swirling the cup in my hands. It's hard to say anything when you feel like whatever comes out is going to be wrong anyway. I felt that too, she said. But maybe it wasn't about right or wrong. Maybe we just needed to say it anyway. I gave a slight shrug. Even if we did talk more, I don't know if it would have changed where we ended up. Maybe not, she said. But maybe it wouldn't have felt so final. So cold. We sat in silence again. Just the buzz of the machines and the hum of a drink cooler in the corner. I'm not asking to go back, she said. That version of us doesn't work. I don't want that again. So what are you asking for? I'm asking if we can think about something new. Something different. Older us. Wiser maybe. Less idealistic, more real. I looked up. Her eyes weren't searching for anything. They were just steady, like she'd thought this through. I've got some ideas, she went on. like setting real boundaries. Around time, work, expectations. I want to understand your schedule instead of resenting it. And I want you to understand that mine matters too. You think that's enough? I asked. Some new rules? No, she said. I think we'd need help. A therapist. Someone to sit between us and call out our blind spots before we wreck everything again. I chuckled. You've got it all mapped out. I've had time to think. I nodded slowly. I don't know, Rachel. I'm not saying yes. I'm not even saying maybe. I know, but I'll think about it. She smiled just a little and stood up. That's all I'm asking. We dumped our trash in silence. Then we walked back toward the elevator, shoulder to shoulder, not touching, just moving in the same direction again. 2 weeks after Doug got out, Rachel texted me. Dinner? Thursday. No hospital food. No vending machines. Just normal. I said yes. We met at Miller's on Route 20, a quiet spot halfway between my apartment and her place. Old booths, vinyl seats, that warm, greasy smell that clung to everything. The kind of place that hadn't changed in 20 years and probably never would. She was already there when I walked in, sitting at a back booth with her coat draped over the seat next to her. She'd ordered coffee and had a yellow notepad on the table. You brought homework? I said, sliding in across from her. Rachel smirked. It's a relationship repair checklist. I raised an eyebrow. You're joking. Nope. She flipped the page toward me. Look. It was real. Written in her sharp, clean handwriting. Each bullet had a checkbox. 1 uninterrupted night a week. No guilt trips during emergency call-ins. Share calendars. Support first, fix later. Timeouts during arguments. Yes, actual timeouts. Therapy check-ins, not just when things blow up. I read through it, half expecting to roll my eyes. But I didn't. It wasn't sentimental. It was practical, honest, grown-up. You've been thinking. I told you I had ideas, she said, sipping her coffee. I don't want to make the same mistakes twice. I leaned back. You realize we're sitting in a diner negotiating like 2 people splitting custody of a goldfish. She laughed. Better than pretending everything will fix itself. I nodded slowly. All right. I got one to add. She tilted her head. Yeah. Monthly check-ins. Like a reset button. Doesn't have to be formal. Just a night where we ask if anything's starting to slide. Her eyes lit up a little. That's actually a really good idea. I looked at her, still unsure if I was ready for all of this, but I didn't hate it. I didn't feel trapped or panicked. I just felt present. So, she said, folding the notepad. How do you want to do this? Slow, I said. No jumping back into shared closets or arguing over laundry. Agreed. We date. We talk. No promises. No pressure, she echoed. And if it feels wrong, we stop. I nodded. Deal. The waitress came by with our food, burgers, fries, and another round of coffee. We ate like people who knew the weight of silence, but didn't need to fill it every second. Comfortable. Not like old times, but not awkward either. When we finished, I walked her out to her car. The lot was quiet except for a couple teens blasting music in a truck near the gas station across the street. She turned toward me. Thanks for showing up. Not just tonight, these past few weeks. Yeah, I said. I didn't expect any of it. But I'm not running from it either. We stood there for a second. No lean in. No dramatic kiss. Just 2 people who had wrecked something and were now standing in the leftover space, figuring out what came next. She gave me a hug. A solid one. No hesitation, no lingering. Talk soon, she said. Yeah, I said. We will. I watched her drive off, then got in my truck and sat there a minute with the engine running. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like the world was closing in. The following week, we met for dinner again. Then the next week, it was coffee and a walk around the park. Week after that, we helped Doug pick out a new mattress. He argued with the salesman for 30 minutes and still walked out empty-handed. 1 date a week. That was the deal. Nothing big. No candles, no pressure. Just time. It felt manageable, like stretching a sore muscle you hadn't used in a while. I didn't feel the need to impress her or perform. She didn't ask for anything I wasn't ready to give. We kept it between us. No texts to mutual friends, no social media posts. Just ours. One Thursday night, I met her outside the high school where she was directing a small community play. I waited by the front steps, watching stage kids filter out with their scripts and paint-stained hands. Rachel came out last, clipboard under her arm, hair tied up, cheeks flushed. She looked happy. Not surface happy, either. The kind you earn. Hey, I said, holding out a to-go cup of her favorite tea. She took it with both hands. God, I needed this. Thank you. Tough rehearsal? Tech week, she said. Kids don't know their cues. Lights are a mess. And someone managed to staple a prop sword to the curtain. I laughed. That's impressive. She nodded. It's chaos, but I love it. We grabbed dinner at a small Mexican spot across town. Talked about nothing for most of it. Some neighbor of hers building a chicken coop, some kid at the shop who over-tightened a fuel line and cracked the whole housing. Then, toward the end, she looked at me over her plate. How's work? I hesitated. Lighter. She raised an eyebrow. Lighter. I've been cutting back, pushing a couple night shifts to Manny, letting the new guy handle some of the diagnostics. Her eyes softened. Really? Yeah. I figured if I'm going to test this life outside the garage idea, I should probably start now. She smiled. I noticed. That landed harder than I expected. Like maybe all this slow effort was actually showing. Afterward, we sat in her car. It was quiet, parked under a street lamp near the edge of the theater lot. The windows were cracked just enough to let in the cool air. She turned down the radio and looked over at me. You ever think about what this could look like, long term? I stared out the windshield. Yeah, sometimes. I'm not talking moving back in. Not yet. But, something. Something, I repeated. I don't want to rush it, she said. I just want to be intentional. You and me, figuring out what makes sense now. Not then. Not what fell apart. I nodded. I get that. We don't owe anyone explanations, she added. Not yet. This is ours. I looked over at her. She meant it. This wasn't about some dramatic reunion. It was about rebuilding from the dirt up. Feels good this way, I said. She reached over and squeezed my hand once, then let go. No speeches. No pressure. I drove home that night with the windows down, the air sharp in my lungs. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't feel like something I had to outrun. The next afternoon, I brought lunch to Rachel's gallery space. She'd been working with a few local kids on a youth exhibit, clay work, collage, recycled junk turned into meaning. Stuff like that. The whole place smelled like wet plaster and hot glue. She met me at the side door, wiping her hands on an old flannel. You're early. You sounded hungry, I said, holding up the bag. We sat on the back steps, just the two of us. The sun hit the brick wall behind her in a way that made the whole place feel warmer than it was. She unwrapped her sandwich while I cracked open 2 bottled teas. A few bites in, she stood and walked back inside, came out holding something small in both hands. It was a sculpture, hand-sized, rough but precise. A heart, solid and imperfect, cupped in 2 cracked hands made of clay and wire. She handed it to me. This was you. I turned it in my hands. What do you mean? You always were careful. Just didn't always know how to show it. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. I just looked at the piece a second longer, then set it down beside me. She sat back next to me, quiet. I reached over and took her hand. No speech. No promises. Just that. Later that evening, after I'd gone home and showered off the shop, my phone rang. Rachel. Hey, I answered. Doug wants to know if you're coming to the next family barbecue. I paused. Only if I'm invited. There was a smile in her voice when she answered. You are. By both of us. I hung up and sat there for a while, phone still in my hand. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something let go in my chest. Like I'd been holding my breath for months and finally remembered how to breathe again.